Tony Perkins of the Family Research Council. He made a comment with regard to Donald Trump, and I'm going to play the audio of it for you. But basically, this ongoing conversation about how the most fervent supporters of Donald Trump, they are evangelical Christians. And that should be, that takes me aback. That sets me back a little bit because of everything that Donald Trump is and everything that he's not, everything that he presents himself to be, the way that he talks, the way that he carries himself, the way that he the persona that he tries to present, right? It's not just not just the way that he carries himself, but it's what he tries to present and how he presents it. And nothing about Donald Trump says I'm a Christian. And he shouldn't have to be, right? Let's start here. To be the president of the United States, you should not have to be a Christian. Now, ostensibly, every president since the founding has been some type of Christian. And I say ostensibly because, I think there's a good chance that many of them were not Christian or agnostic at best. And so to be sure, as we go in this conversation, it doesn't matter whether or not Donald Trump is a Christian. What matters is the political participation of evangelicals underneath the guise of trying to do or make America more Christian and always inserting themselves into the lives of people who, quite frankly, don't want to be bothered by our religion. And not that I need to give caveats, because if you watch my show any amount of time, as I adjust my seat for the third time, if you watch my show any amount of time, you understand exactly where I stand. Me being a believer, me being a Christian, the reason I'm in politics was because of this desire to help society and all that stuff that was cultivated inside of church. And I grew up and learned really quick there's only so much that you could do about the real problems of society within the confines of religion. So I got out of religion and got into politics, quickly discovered what I had felt at a intrinsic level all my life, that there's something uniquely wrong about the political participation of white conservative evangelicals in America. And it's at that point that, I'm going to do Alex Jones here, that I wrote this book, God is Not a Republican, because I had to take a look back over my life and take a historical look over the entire, because I was born in 1980, right? And that's really when the moral majority got its stride in reaction to it was in reaction to the Roe versus Wade decision and in reaction to the Jimmy Carter administration, Jimmy Carter being one of the most quote unquote devout Christians that ever was. He taught Sunday school on Sunday morning in Washington, D.C. while he was president of the United States. And there was a backlash to that because prior to that, there was not really a large political participation by evangelicals, but enter onto the stage people like Jerry Falwell Sr., and a couple of other key names that escape me right now, and they're all in the book, but particularly Jerry Falwell Sr. and the moral majority. And a couple of key figures in the Republican Party who actually went looking for these values voters. And up until that point in 1980, there really was not a large participation of values voters in the political arena at all, specifically in the Republican Party. Barry Goldwater, who had been a star in the Republican Party up until that point, basically said that they have no place in the Republican Party. These preachers, that their religion and governing based on their religion had no place in American politics and had no place in the Republican Party. I'm not a fan of Barry Goldwater. I've read, of course, everybody's read his book, The Conscience of a Conservative. But in this regard, he was absolutely right. And he took a very firm stand against the moral majority, said that they're neither moral nor are they in the majority, and said that people like Jerry Falwell needed a kick in the ass. That was 1980. And since 1980, the entire paradigm has shifted significantly to where we are now. I mean, the paradigm shifted from evangelicals jumping into the political fray in order to bring morals back to America. And everything that they did was based on morality, sexual morality specifically, right? Let's be clear. The entire participation of evangelicals in Christianity, in politics since 1980, since the moral majority, has 100% been surrounding sexual morality as they define it based on their interpretation of the Bible. Never did they care about economic justice, economic morality. Never did they care about being their brother's keeper. Never did they care about anything. Never did they really take a stance against American imperialism. They never spoke out against America's war machine. They never did the things that you would normally attribute to people who are trying to be like Christ. Never. And they found themselves on the opposite side on many important social issues. They found themselves on the opposite side of justice. And so you can, and because they have reduced their entire political participation down to nothing more than sexual morality as they define it based on their interpretation of their reading, to be redundant, of the Bible. And so if that is and let's be specific, right? So that, we're clear. We're talking about their opposition to same-sex marriage. Hell, we're talking about their opposition to homosexuality in general. You have people as far as Roy Moore, who thinks that it should be illegal. You have Christian radicals, right? You talk about Sharia law. There's no Sharia law like Christian Sharia law. Let's just be clear, right? It's the only difference is like they just do it in the name of Jesus versus in the name of Allah, right? And so, their entire pursuit of sexual morality hinged on not their own sexual morality, but your sexual morality. And you doing what they say you should do in your bedroom, and you not doing what they say that you should not do in your bedroom, right? And so it's completely about controlling the sexual lives of people who are free moral agents, number one. People who have the right to conform their lives to Christianity or not. It's their choice. That's number two, and actually, let me parse number two. Number two is actually, if we divide that out, the Christian evangelical participation trying to get legislation to control your sexuality, to control what you do with your body, what women do with their bodies. Their participation is neither constitutional nor is it even Christian, right? To be sure, right? So people should be, and they are free to live their lives however the hell they want to live their lives. We should not have to live our lives based on a particular interpretation of the Bible or any sacred text. That's not how America works. Based on the Constitution, right? It's at the very core of what they believe, of what they try to say they believe in terms of the Constitution. And they are at odds with that because they are trying to create a theocracy. They do not want a democracy. They do not want plurality. They don't want diversity of religion. They don't want diversity of beliefs. They want a theocracy, just like they try to make you afraid of Sharia law. And so if we parse down, it's neither constitutional nor even Christian, because you can't compel people. You cannot force people to live according to the Bible and expect it to be pleasing in the eyes of your God. You can't. It just doesn't work like that. So this is the framework this is the backdrop, rather, that I grew up in, and coming to terms with my religion and how it was being used and weaponized. I actually thought about calling this morning's episode Weaponized Christianity, but it's actually Christian imperialism, and I'll show you, we'll get to that in a minute. But growing up and seeing how devoid, how divorced from actual Jesus principles conservative evangelical political participation was. It was completely bereft of anything that even remotely looked like Jesus. All it was reduced down to this day was opposition to same-sex marriage and opposition to abortion. That's it. And so they neatly fit inside the Republican Party because the Republican Party said, oh, that's fine. We can adopt those two things. We can incorporate that into our platform, because so long as you don't bother us about taxation, about getting rid of taxes and and lowering the tax responsibility on the wealthiest people, as long as you don't bother us about that, sure, we'll talk about Christian family values. You know, so long as you don't bother us about our war machine, because a huge component of capitalism is how much money we can pour into defense contractors that are strategically placed in districts all across the country to make sure that even the most anti-imperialist congressman is not going to really do anything against the military industrial complex, because if they do, they're going to cause jobs in their district, right? So long as you don't say anything about that, Christians, fine. We'll give you voice. We'll give you a platform. We'll elevate you. We'll donate to your churches. We'll get our billionaires to donate to your churches. Hell, we get a tax write-off on top of it to boot. It's a perfect marriage. And so this is how the moral majority fit into, and the Christian evangelicals fit into the Republican Party for the last 37, 38 years. And now we've come to the apex of the hypocrisy. We've come to the mountaintop of their hypocrisy, because everything that they've done for the last 38 years, since the moral majority began in 1980, everything that they have done to try to control your life, to try to control my life, to tell you who you can love and who you can't love, to tell you who can marry and who you can't marry, to tell a woman what she can and can't do with her body, everything that they've tried to shove down our throats for the last 30 to 40 years has now been laid bare to be nothing more than the height of hypocrisy, because of their unfeigned and unwavering support for the most debased. I mean, Donald Trump by far is the worst example. He is the exact opposite of what your Sunday school teacher told you to grow up to be. And so now we're at this point where they are revealing themselves willingly, happily. Tony Perkins had this to say on a radio program, saying that we're going to basically excuse Donald Trump. We're going to give him a mulligan. We're going to excuse a mulligan I don't play golf, so I had to Google it. But basically giving you another shot after you've messed up. You get another shot, right? And it's not going to count against you.